Okay, so that's me. I'll keep it short. So finances are not good at the Somerset Council. There was an executive today at Taunton where the financial report's opening remarks from the finance officer was describing the position as stark and challenging, which is never a great way to start your finance report. They are looking at currently about a £28.5 million shortfall this year. That follows on from the just short of 20 million shortfall from last year. Last year's shortfall was met by taking money from the reserves, which could be done and left them within the realms of acceptable reserves. The reserves at county are supposed to be somewhere between 30 and 50 million. If they obviously this year are running a 28.5 million shortfall, that will take half of those reserves. They are looking currently to make those reserves up by the fact that obviously with the 5 councils merging, there are some reserves that the districts had which are now going to go into the pot, and that will make up the shortfall for this year. But those can only be spent once, and once they've gone, then it is tight. This takes into account the savings that have been made through the unitary. To be fair, the savings were never going to hit in year one because of the redundancy payments and transformation costs. So it was planned that there would be an £18.5 million saving each year. But in the first year, the vast majority of that goes in redundancy payments and other incidental costs. So there was never going to be that sort of saving this year. That's planned to come in next year. We're now being advised that it's planned to come in next year and the year after. So it's hoped those savings will come through, but at the moment it's looking less certain than it was. I think the next 18 months are going to be pretty difficult. The finance officer's advice to the council is, you may have heard today that Birmingham City Council has put out a thing called a 114 notice, which basically says they're bust. At which point government inspectors go in and will run the council services, but they will only run the statutory services. Anything that is non-statutory, they will simply cease. So if you can avoid a 114 notice, you do it at all costs, because otherwise all the things that are nice to have but not statutory suddenly stop. The advice we're getting is, unless something changes in the next 18 months, Somerset will be knocking on the door of a 114. So will half of the country's county and unitaries. Colin?
What about the assets of buildings that they have? Say, like Sedgemoor's old buildings, will they be seeking to rationalise their property portfolio to? Yeah,
there's 2 big bits of work going on at the moment. Partly is the old council buildings, although one of the things of the unitary was they were not looking to relocate everything to Taunton, so they're looking to see what can be disposed of whilst maintaining a presence in Yeovil, in West Somerset, in Mendip, and in Sedgemoor. There's also a major bit of work looking at the commercial investments that the council has. So, for example, the 4 districts had invested in commercial assets to the tune of something like 250 million across the country, on the basis that they would bring in a revenue which then helps to pay for the services. That is still happening, but those are being looked at as to whether it would be better to dispose of those to get the capital, but if you dispose of them, you lose the revenue you're currently getting from it. So there is a major bit of work being done financially at the moment to look at those and see where they go. And the other thing, of course, is with disposals. They don't want to get to the point where people think it's a fire sale and everything gets knocked down. So as I say, it's going to be a difficult few months of transition. And unfortunately, as we mentioned earlier with the planning, there are a number of officers, some of whom left before the merger, some of whom are leaving now, either to quite a few of the central ones who have been with the council for a long time have taken retirement because they felt it's the time to move on. But quite a lot of others have moved on to other jobs elsewhere in organisations that aren't quite as much in flux. We will see how it proceeds, but as I say, the next couple of years are going to be pretty difficult. A couple of other items we've been asked just to pass on, and I will say before I say this, I have no medical expertise, but we've been advised that the COVID booster programme is starting in September. It'll be running from September the 11th and will be made available to those of an age of 65 and over, residents in care homes and those who have other medical medical conditions that need to be supported. So they will have the option again of those from 11th of September. Flu vaccines are running probably from middle of October, they're saying, but they are starting off with children at school. Apparently, again, the advice we're given is a lot of flu gets spread by kids from school taking it home to parents and grandparents, and so they're looking at trying to address the issue through school. So that is something that will be contacted to parents, obviously through the schools themselves in due course. A couple of other things, roundabout sponsorship. You'll remember there used to be signs up on the roundabout at Edith Mead that it was maintained by Sanders, and across the Sedgemoor they had a number of roundabouts where basically companies paid money to have an advertising thing, and that money was used to keep the roundabouts. That is going to be rolled out more widely across the county, including other roundabouts that didn't have it, but what they're saying is that money will go into the highways budget, it won't necessarily go to the maintenance of the roundabout. One would imagine that if you're going to be having your advert put on a roundabout, you're going to be pretty keen to make sure it's not in a state, because otherwise it's not going to reflect well on your business. So I think there will be pressure to keep the roundabouts tidy, but they're not making the commitment that it's ring-fenced for those. And the final thing I was going to mention was recycling. I mentioned a while ago they were doing a trial in Frome of soft plastic recycling. It's been running for a number of months. Apparently it's gone very well. They've had over 4,000 tonnes of soft plastics that have been recycled. They're looking to see if they can roll it out more widely, but they will not do so until they have got an outlet for the product. It's one of the things that Somerset Waste Partnership has always said it would not do in any of the things, whether it be paper, glass or plastics. They will only collect what they already have an outlet to sell on somewhere, so they're not going to be left in the situation of some councils where you've either got stockpiles of it or it ends up being shipped off overseas somewhere because they can't get rid of it. So it may not be happening immediately, but the trial seems to have gone well, has gone down well with the public over there. They've been very pleased with it, and hopefully will be rolled out in due course. Malcolm, you had your hand up.
Dave Lewis at Barrow are circulating flu injection dates from the 25th of this month.
Right, excellent.
Okay.
Okay. If there's no other comments or questions, we'll move on to finance report.
Basically, we've got a number of variable payments. First of all, the statutory payments. These are statutory payments that were agreed on 25922 for September 2023. So we need a resolution to approve those, and they are the payments that concern the contract, GB Sports, staffing costs. They're the three main statutory payments this month. I'll take that first one because it is a separate item really.
Okay, is there a proposal that we pay the normal monthly statutory payments? Thank you, David. All those in support, please show.
Okay.
That's clearly carried.
Variable payment listing for September. There are 7 payments actually. PAYTA, which is now almost become a statutory payment because it's one that comes up every month, and probably for next year, probably asking the council to agree as a statutory payment. The same applies to Nichols Facilities, £100. I did meet up with Stuart Nichols last week actually. He was doing the SID movement when I did notice boards. What a lot of councils do there, they take the last year's figure and then the following year we just divide it by 12 and make it a statutory payment. Because it doesn't vary from one month to another. There's 5 weeks in a month, I do an extra one. And that would be easier because we can move that across to statutory payments as well, which just makes life a little bit more simple for him and probably easier for us as well. So, but at the moment it's as it is, £100. The Somerset Council invoice for rubbish bin at Hill Lane, 564. I don't know any comments on that at all. No. Somerset Playing Fields Association, we belong to that, £15 per annum. Richard Young oversees that. Paul Dixon invoice for a gents toilet repair he did some time ago, £45. GB Sports and Leisure, they did an annual inspection back in June actually, 102, they just invoiced us for it. And external audit fee to BKF Little John for our external audit this year, which is, as you know, now completed. That's 378, and I've just listed on the right-hand side the VAT elements of that. So we get claim back 63 of the audit, £17 of GB Sports, and £94 for the bin. So all that's claimed back.
Just for clarity, Owen, so that's part of the other bit, or in addition to the other bit?
That's the element of VAT.
Okay,
as
so
part of that.
So for the Somerset Council bin, it was
Yes.
564,
That's
but
right.
we'll get back 94.
94 quid. So
Okay,
you've
so
got
it's
the
470.
net figure is
Right.
564. That's 94. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's the variable payments.
Any questions on those? If not, can I have a proposal that we pay them?
That
Elena?
last item's not shown on the agenda.
Well, external audit fee.
I've got
Was
it,
it?
I've got it
It's
on mine,
online.
Okay.
but I don't know.
Certainly on those boards anyway, which is important.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that's that. So
Oh, we need a proposer to
proposal.
pay.
Fine.
You've got someone. Not there as a proposer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all those in favour, we pay them? That's unanimous, I think.
Okay. The two other financial matters. One concerns, John, I believe you have something to say about the envelope that I was given back last month. Would you
Yes.
like to elaborate a bit on that?
Yes, several months ago I've been trying to bring it to the council's attention. So I've got the questions, but I didn't open the envelope. It felt like there was coins in the envelope. It was given to me pre-meeting. So my question back to the chair and to the clerk is, what was in the envelope?
What was in the envelope was the payment of £2, which you'd asked for refunding of the pins and paper that you'd done for the signs for the notices, that you'd asked us to refund you.
Okay. So can I ask why that had to be given to me pre-parish council meeting and not during parish council meeting?
I was trying to make it fairly subtle. I didn't want to point it out particularly at the meeting, particularly as it's been going on for some time. So I was trying to help you actually in a way, John. But since you want to raise it, well, I'll have a discussion about it. You know, if that's an issue for you.
So first of all, I'd like that any monies to go to charity. So this isn't about money. This is about procedure. Second question I'd like to raise is that previous meetings this year I've asked for paper at a cost of £10, and I've been turned down for paper that wasn't necessary and wasn't a necessary expense. For example, if I wish to print something off and give it to Malcolm, a piece of information that Malcolm obviously isn't on email, I'm told that I can't expense a few pounds of paper or printing, which I don't charge for printing, by the way. So my question back is that what is the difference between £2 and £10?
Oh, I'm happy to. Sorry.
I print off documents associated with the planning application for clarity and explanation. I don't expect any to level any expense charge for doing my job.
That is your prerogative, councillor.
Yeah, and
That
also,
is your prerogative.
John, we had, as you know, a meeting with yourself, me and Melina on the village green where this issue was discussed, and it was talked about, and I explained to you what the difference was and why we would try and sort out the £2, and the difference was, with the £2 you were requested to put up some notices around the village, which was something that the council needed to do for our public meeting. You were asked to do that, you incurred the expense having been requested to do that by the council, and that's why that money was then refunded, because you had incurred that expense on behalf of the council. On the other issues that you do, as whether you wish to print stuff off or not, that is your choice as a councillor. You weren't asked to do that by the council. That was your individual choice. So that's why you don't get those raised. And we have discussed the issue about whether we should do expenses. And at that time, it was felt that members don't feel it's appropriate for members to claim. So that's why there's a difference. But this was made clear to you, as I say, in that meeting with you, me and Melina on the green, as to why, because you initially at that stage hadn't been paid the money back, and you raised it with me as to why it wasn't, and I went through with you what the difference was between the three issues that you were raising.
So, Chair, that was an informal conversation.
Absolutely.
That was an informal conversation, and this is now a formal conversation. So, I thank you for referencing our informal conversations.
Oh, come on, John. I mean, let's try and keep this sensible here. We're all trying to get to a conclusion where we're all understanding what is going on. You asked a question now to say that you were completely unaware of why the things were being treated differently. All I've explained is that I've had that conversation with you as well.
Then my point back to you was that any payment should have been on camera as part of the parish council meetings of no benefit to me whatsoever. And I reiterate, this is not about money, it's about procedure. And I'd ask for that to be a charity.
Well, I mean, the money is there if you wish to give it to charity, that is a matter for you.
Yeah.
It's not a matter for the council to decide that. So if you want to take that £2 and pay it to a charity, then it's a matter for you entirely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is that all right? Would you like the refund of the £2?
I will collect it at the end. We can pass it. No, thank you.
Yeah, we can pass it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that one, John?
Nope.
Right. Six, not
the
finance document.
I sent you a document which I don't think probably needs too much time to go through. The final document is. It's a summary of where we are at the current time. And if you look at the balancing sheet at the back, it shows you what our reserves are currently, our fixed reserves, which is the important thing, is what we've got allocated in our finances as fixed reserves, which at the moment sits at 67,141. And then, of course, if you go to the back sheet, that gives us operating cash of about 16,000 projected to the end of the year. And that is a projection because I can't tell you exactly what the end of the year is going to look like because things crop up during the year. We might have a sudden need to expend money on something which so far we don't know about. But the way things are at the moment, looking at all the costs that we know about, that is where we're sitting at the current time. And as you say, if you look at the fixed reserves, I think is most important to look at. You've got election fund, a clerk's gratuity fund, seal funding, which obviously will be the bulk of which will be used for the shop eventually. We had a grant from Tony Hill earlier in the year. We're sitting on £5,000 for the ANPR unit, which I'll talk to you about a bit later on, which will be used for that purpose. We've got the remainder of our warm space grant. If you remember right, last year we went for a £1,000 grant with the Community Council of Somerset, but we actually only used a small percentage of it. So, and I've asked Kim Wilcox, the village agent, what they want us to do with that £600. If they want it returned, fine. If we can use it in some other way that's agreeable to them, we can use that similarly. The play reserve from 22-23, which is our budgeted play reserve, and then the play reserve for 23-24. That's £5,000 in total. And then, of course, this year we did build into our budget a shop loan reserve. This was the money we would have paid to PWLB had we built the shop this year and started taking the loan out to make the payments. That is not going to happen. So effectively in this year's budget we've got 11,203, which has not been used. So that's been allocated as a fixed reserve because we might need it for something to do with the shop in terms of additional costs later in the year. So that's why it's been placed into those funds. So really, it's a question of whether you have any questions really on the budget that's been set. I don't normally do this amount of detail on a 6 months. I normally do it pre-precept setting in November. But I thought particularly at the present time when we're thinking of going for tendering and we've got the shop costs and so forth, it'd be useful to see what our finances look like.
And I think also the fact that obviously a number of members are relatively new to the council, when we get to the precept setting, this gives you a bit of a warm-up as to what you're going to be seeing coming forward then. So that's always a a fun meeting. So, okay, anything else on that for anyone? No. That takes us to matters for consideration. ANPR.
Well, basically, this is a very interesting ongoing bit of dialogue here. We were told by the police and given a certain process that we had to go through to get the ANPR agreed. And I've been battling for about 3 or 4 months to try and identify what that process is, because the police didn't seem to know. The police eventually came back to me and gave me their take on what they thought was the right process. I wasn't happy with it because they didn't seem to be giving me the right information. So I found a government department who deal with this kind of activity. And this particular government department looked into it and they said, actually, what you've been told by the police is incorrect. You don't have to submit the paperwork to anybody. All you have to do is put the paperwork onto your website so the public can see it at any given point. And the legislation is due to be changed this autumn, which will make that much clearer. So what it means effectively, and we are the guinea pig in this because nobody else, no other parish council has been down this track. We're the first people to go down the ANPR route. So other councils are looking to us as an example of how it works. So my proposal now is asking the council to consider the purchase of this unit, the ANPR unit, and placing the paperwork onto the website, and then we fully comply with what we've been asked to do. So we need to purchase the ANPR, we need to get Stuart Nichols to install it, trained up, and then the whole thing can be activated, providing we have the posts in place to do so. So that's where we are. So it's been a big, all around the houses to get to where we should have been 6 months ago, and that's primarily to do with the police advice, or lack of it.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Owen, has the price gone up since we put our...
I don't know. We need to find out from Westcotec what the current price is, because they're the only people that do this actually. Westcotec.
See if he can hold his price. Probably he hasn't sold very many.
We wouldn't have done, I don't think. No. In fact, I had a chap from Wiltshire actually rang me up. Said, "Oh, I believe that you're the font of all knowledge when it comes to the ANPR." I said, "Well, I don't know where you got that information from, but I can certainly try and help you where I can." And you know, he's looking to us to sort of, you know, and I'm in touch with him to help him a little bit. So yeah, we need to talk to Westcotec. We need to find out what the current price is, how that aligns with what we were originally told. Because I think originally they were sort of talking about 6,000, weren't they? Just a short 6,000.
It was, but that included VAT.
Yes,
of course,
which we
so,
came back.
yeah, but our maximum grant I could apply for was 5,000 anyway.
Yeah.
But I think that from the councillor's point of view, I think probably when we get it, we should have a brief education ourselves as to what it actually does, so we are fully aware as councillors what we're embarking on.
Yes.
And then get Stuart properly trained as well, so that we're all au fait, because this is a new venture, and hopefully we can probably loan, I don't know, we may be able to loan it out to other councils if they want to try it.
Yeah.
So we're at a leading edge, really.
I think what this to me, what this highlights is the fact that very often when you go through, we had the same situation with our loan application, whereby I could get very little what I call local sense from the matter, and when I went through to eventually found a government department that could help me, I got the actual chapter and verse on it. And so what you get initially is not always how things are. You've just got to dig around a bit and find out what's going on, and this is a classic case actually. So is that the way forward then? We get a price?
Well, I was only going to suggest, I mean, we had talked about this, us in effect potentially putting in a grand and the £5,000 from the grant. If we can get confirmation that it's still within that price range, can we just get on with it? But if it's higher than that, we bring it back to the council,
I think
rather than wait another month just to say, oh, actually it hasn't changed. So if we put the proposal in, we go ahead and purchase the unit
Yes.
with a maximum net cost to this council of £1,000 on top of the £5,000.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, got that, yeah.
everyone happy with that as a Colin?
Yes, but then there are some, as I say, we want, I suppose going forward, we want to add some A, B, C, Ds
Yes.
on it to make sure that we
Well,
actually...
it'd be worth highlighting those now to them, that Owen can at least say to that Wesker Tech, we'd like certainly the training. I think it's something we all be aware of what's
what do
going on in
people
our
feel
area.
about that? It'd be wrong for me to suggest them. What do you feel about it?
Because it's highly likely when this thing pops up,
Yeah.
residents are going to want to know what it's about, so they're going to probably have words with councillors if we don't know.
And yeah, on our website as well. So
Yes.
1, training for
Yeah.
councillors, 2, training for Stuart Nichols to make sure the data, he knows how to use the data and what he's doing with it. We'd like to know what his modus operandi is.
Yeah.
I think those are probably the key things, and then we can discuss with, and for the posts, must be
They're already
installed.
underway, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And then I don't know if it requires any spares batteries. We probably ought to inquire that. Yeah,
We need to
those.
get a good brief on it, and
Yeah.
detail.
Yeah.
Okay, John?
What data is specifically high for speeding in our village? Are we likely to see a lot more mobile speed cameras from the police and the new motorcycles, the portable motorcycles?
Certainly, I mean, we're not... The police are giving us occasional coverage. We've got, obviously, our Speed Watch group has a police officer who comes out and occasionally helps them in their area. But I think the message we were very much given from the police was that this was a way of them having a better coverage within our area. It would be operated, as you know, as in effect a virtual speed watch. It's not there as a speed camera, so it's not issuing people fines. It's doing the same thing that the speed watch does, but being able to be somewhere 24/7 rather than a couple of hours on a Friday each week. So it's not aimed at, as I say, it's not a revenue generator. It's an educational tool, and that was very much the police's view when they met with us and Wesker Tech. It was this is not an earner.
Thank you, Chair. Understand that. However, if we were to see lots of police motorcyclists doing speed cameras in the village afterwards, that could potentially be an issue here for certain people. Not that they should be speeding, but it would put a focus on this village for speeding. I know, certainly in my 49 years, there have been focuses in the past here for speed cameras, etc. And I've seen the motorcycles sat on Burton Road recently, so just want to be aware that I think not everybody will embrace seeing lots of police sat with the speed cameras. Just an observation, not condoning speeding in the slightest.
I think you're right. There will be different
There
views.
will be different views in this village, and we will be held accountable.
Yeah. And certainly the Speed Watch team frequently advise us that they get waved at quite vigorously by some of the motorists when they're out there doing their speed watch.
Yes.
There will be people who don't like the fact that they're being asked to drive within the speed limit, but unfortunately that it is a concern that we constantly have raised with us, that speeding is a problem in this village. So that's why we're going down the route.
Well, if I may, Chairman, whilst we're on that matter, a relevant point, I was speaking to a police officer yesterday, there is a big upsurge in electric motorcycles. One went through Station Road yesterday, no number plates, shot past my house at a ridiculous figure. Now that has no number plates whatsoever, and very difficult to catch up. The police department is even difficult to catch up with people. So it is an observation again, just as the technology is moving on, and I certainly saw, and that again, if one of those hits a person or a cat or whatever on the road, it is something that I certainly wasn't aware of until the other day. Was in our village, but it shot past only yesterday down Station Road at quite a speed.
Absolutely.
An electric motorcycle.
Yeah.
capable of about 70 miles an hour. No number plates, no legislation. They're going to open that out.
At some point, the government is going to have to catch up.
Correct. They are working on it in the King's Speech.
Okay. So we have the proposition then that we do go ahead on the basis of purchasing the item up to a maximum net cost of £1,000 over and above the grant we've already got, and the other issues that Colin mentioned, which Colin has noted. All those in favour, I can't remember them all. So, but all those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's unanimous. Yes.
While we're on speeding, can you ask, I've forgotten his name, Nicholas. Stuart.
Stuart, as he calls
To
him.
make the batteries don't last long in one of our units in particular. It can be up there for 2 or 3 days and then it's red on. I told him we need new batteries. I said, we might be able to buy them from somewhere like Radio Spares, but I need to know what sort of battery and I'll have a look.
Countries,
Yeah.
We'll chase on that. We'll get some quotes.
yeah, sure.
Okay. Community shop and build items not covered under the working groups. So we've got way leave.
The way leave is the main item actually. Way leave plan 2. What it is basically, Charles Fleming is our solicitor, and Charles has looked at the way leave agreement, as I asked him to, and he has assured me there's nothing unusual about it. It complies entirely with what a way leave should look like. He's seen lots of them. And so he would be happy for us to go ahead on that basis, providing it fits with the two together in a way, the two documents, the way leave agreement and the way leave plan, because at the moment, until that is signed by us, no movement in the shop can take, the National Grid work can take place. So they won't even give us a date until they've got us back. So what we're looking for is approval.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose, I've read the waiver agreement and that Charles Fleming has agreed it. I would like to propose that we sign this document with the agreed plan so that National Grid can carry on and do their work, and then it'll clear the way for us.
I'll second that.
Just to bring to the Chairman and Clerk's attention, there is a clear error in the way leave agreement. The plan shown is 335062. The legal bit is referred to as 333506.
And I have raised this with National Grid and they said it makes no difference. They said you don't need to, I said, do you want to send us a new plan because the plan is numbered differently? They said no, just carry on signing what you've got. We're not worried about that.
So sorry, that was done verbally or in writing?
It came back to me by email.
In email.
Yeah.
So
So
could I put it back to the chair that it could be corrected before it is agreed? Because the numbers are incorrect if you're referring to the two numbers.
Well, if you've got an email confirmation from the National Grid, then that can be attached to the way leave agreement and plan, I would have thought, with their agreement.
we could put an addendum to the plan which says this is the correct plan, please confirm. Very simple. We don't need to get them to redo that document necessarily.
Well, if we get authorisation from the council to sign the document as it is with that addendum, or if we have to get that particular thing changed, if you will authorise me to sign it with just that one change, then we can send it back as we think we've got with the email agreement, but raise it with National Grid and say, look, we'd like clarification on this.
The way around that is to cross out, put the correct number in, initial it, both you and Chairman and Clerk,
Yes.
and then they also initial it, showing that they've agreed the amendment.
Do that.
That would be the way we would get around that.
Happy to do that. John, and then Melina.
Just to add to that, that needs to also be reference to your legal expert who has approved said documents. So he also needs to be added to that.
Yeah, you can have my LLM on it.
But it's, I think as long as far as the council is concerned, the people who will sign for it is the clerk and the chair.
Just won't be required to sign.
If we're just changing that one thing, that's not going to involve the solicitor. But we will, but as I say, as a belt and braces, I think we can do that. But if I would also ask just for authorisation that if they came back and said, no, actually we want to print that number, the corrected number in, that you authorise us to repeat the signing with that only that in alteration. We're not wanting to change anything else, Melina.
I didn't get the plan included in the email about the Wayleaps agreement.
Was it sent? I think sent.
Yeah.
There seems to be some glitch going on in the emails that I'm receiving because I'm not getting
Are you getting all the ones?
attachments
Are you getting all the ones I'm forwarding on to you?
No.
Because I'm forwarding the ones that you requested,
Yes.
which is all the general
Yes.
emails. Yeah.
But like with the agenda, where you then put in all of the when I click on them, they all say no preview available, and there's nothing there.
I understand that.
It might be a software issue at your.
What's your email? What do you use for email? Just my
The Melina
Gmail?
Kingscote at Melina Kingscote PKPC at yahoo.com.
Don't know.
I mean, I get the emails, it's just
Yeah.
none of the
No
attachments
attachments.
actually have any body to them.
I mean, just,
So I haven't seen the plan.
I'll tell you what, do you want to, I'll pass that one down.
It's like,
Pass that down.
John's got it up on his
Oh,
laptop,
yes.
so I haven't
Okay.
been looking at it, but it wasn't included.
Right.
Okay.
Can we move this on? I think we talked about the parameters for signing this agreement.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's my proposal, that you sign it and you agree with National Grid how they want the amendment in the plan number to be referenced, and that you have the council's agreement to sign that agreement, waive agreement.
Okay.
That's my proposal.
Second proposal, we do not sign it. The numbers are clearly incorrect and should be corrected before we go ahead and sign it. That's my proposal.
And John, your proposal is a direct negative of the other, so it's a question of vote against it if you don't wish to.
Yeah.
So with the recommendation that's been moved is that we do sign it based on what we've explained in terms of sorting out the detail of the plan identification. Those in favour of that, please show. Okay, we've done that. And those against, please show. Okay, that's clearly carried. Thank you. And I will sign that at the meeting
Yeah.
before we leave.
Yeah. Sign that at the end of the meeting.
Okay. Re-tender process.
As you know, we went for tender earlier in the summer or spring,